I've started working on the Rixen here. Where we're going to put this is back in this area here. This is going to be, this obviously here is the wall where the shower goes. We don't have the wall in yet, but this is where the utilities for the water heater and so forth are going to be mounted here. I'm just kind of putting the pieces in place to see how I can mount that. And again, I'm thinking about leaving the heat exchanger there so that way we can exhaust both outputs underneath the refrigerator, coming one out right back in here, bringing the other one out into the main cabin through the floor over here somewhere. I'm not sure. I might end up just outletting it here even though these two are close together, because if I do that, that'll take up space in the storage. Coolant tank, I'm looking at mounting right up in here. Gives me enough room underneath it to get to the plumbing easily and still keep that electrical box open so we can get to the wiring there. I'm going to use some extruded aluminum here, put in some plus nuts across there, and then get something so I can mount that. Once I do that, because I'm not going to hook this up right now, I'm just kind of getting the general layout in there, I'll put in a shelf here so I can start using the rest of the storage here in the way that I want as far as putting things in there that we're going to bring with us. So here's the mount then, the upper part of it, the lower part of it. Now these two here, I ended up using holes that were already existing, so I didn't have to then drill or coat. Now these here need to be new ones, so obviously coat with a PR15 to keep any rust from deciding to start. So here's the coolant tank mounted. I'm going to put a shelf now. I'm going to put brackets across here, and then I'm going to put a shelf here. I'll put a hole here and there so I can get access to the cap here and everything. But I want this shelf here because then this becomes storage for outdoor things, bigger things, so forth, that we can put here. The picnic table, the table, the roll-up table, some chairs, the generator, the hitch, you know, all those things, they'll get stored in the back here, tools, etc. I'm going to add some shelves to be able to put that stuff up and down through here. Here's the progress today. Have the framing done. You can see there's going to be two shelves, one here, one here. This is big enough the generator's going to fit up here because that's probably something we'll get out the least. And then, depending on what all fits in here, I might end up adding another shelf. I was hoping to fit a chair in here, but it's not quite tall enough with everything together. At an angle, it does fit, so we'll just have to see how the chairs fit, our roll-up table, and then the grill we want to get in here somewhere also. So we might end up keeping the chairs underneath this bench because it's long enough to fit that, and the bigger table actually will fit under there. So we might leave those under there and move some of the other things, tools and things that are in here, into this space here. I have to build then the channel for the water to come up for the faucet here, and then continue it on so the shower head can be up here. And then again, this will be a shelf. I'm going to block this off this way and there so nothing can fall in behind the refrigerator. Same thing here, this will get closed off so that way we have storage. I might try to build a little indent into the wall there so that way we can actually make use of this space, but we'll see depending on how it comes together. And here's the pump, circulation pump. I'm going to put the shortest hose I can, and it'll fit right up underneath the Comfort Hot tank. And then I'm also going to build a mount. Really, this probably would hold on decently on its own, but I'm not going to trust that, so I'm going to make a mount here, like so. That'll go then and mount to the same place the tank is mounted. The circulation pump here is mounted. I built a little bracket to hold it here, so it is very solid. Now we're going to work on mounting the coolant circulation into the heat exchanger next. Here is the mount I came up with then. Obviously this is the heat exchanger, this is the dual wall. Coolant will go into this side, come out this side. From here, it will go then to the fan for cabin air. And then fresh water or cold water will come in this side here. The cold water will be split. It'll also come into here, come through here and get heated. Hot water comes out here. Cold water comes in here through the mixing valve, and then the correct temperature water comes out here. Here's the circulation pump mounted, and then the mixer for the hot water. I've got it plumbed in now. You can see here, we come off the pump to a T, Cold water then goes over into the top side here on the heat exchanger. Comes out the other side, and then into the hot part of the mixer. And then off of this side of the T here, after the shutoff valve, cold water goes into the mixer, so that way warm water then comes out, and then into a T here, bringing it up then to this side here, and then over to the sink. Cold water, just like it did before, goes down then into this side, up onto then the shower, and across then to the sink. That's how that's plumbed. Now we have the hot that comes out of here, flows into then the mixer on this side. The coolant comes out here. It will go then to the air exchange, which I'm going to mount in here, so that way it can blow underneath there. And then coming back out of the air exchange over here, going down out of the van, is then how we're going to take it to the furnace below the van. Okay, here I have the fan and the heat exchanger for cabin heat mounted. This is obviously where the coolant comes in and then comes back out, warms up the radiator inside, the fan blows across, out these two ducts, which will run underneath here, feeding one on each side of the refrigerator cabinet there. Thought about running one forward all the way up to the front there, and maybe if this doesn't heat well enough, we still will, but it takes up a lot of space in that cabinet that we use for storage. But either way, right now I'm planning on having two outlets, one on each side here, to blow hot air into the cabin. That's how that came out. Now I'm gonna work on getting this plumbed in. You can see where it comes out of this heat exchanger here. Run a tube up to here, to one of these ports, out of the other port then, and it's gonna go out then through the floor there, because the furnace is going to be mounted on the outside. So moving along then on the plumbing here, I now have out of this heat exchanger coming up into the fan and the radiator here that'll blow hot air out. Now I've got to come out of here, and it's going to go down. I made the hole here to go out of the van. That's what this one is. And then that's going to run up front to the heat exchanger with the coolant. And then another line will come back in about the same spot. It'll go over to then the furnace, which is going to be obviously outside under there. And you can see where the other hole is then to come back into the van, and that's going to connect then to here, and that completes the circuit. Sorry, this is not the best video, but it's tough, tight quarters under here. But here's the rear tire on the driver's side. This is where we're going to mount the furnace. I've got a couple marks there where I'm going to drill out and put some plus nuts. So the plate that we put the furnace to will mount right here, and that way the furnace is here. You can see the holes. There's the hole going up for the line coming from the furnace. That's going to go directly back to the expansion tank there. And then on this side over here, there is the other entrance there. This is where the hose from coming out of the air exchange is going to come down. They're both, it's going to run down then the frame rail all the way to the engine compartment there. Another line will run back, come back here, and it'll attach then into the furnace here. Here's the last little bit of plumbing on the inside. Here is the return line coming through the floor there, up to the tank here. Now we'll go underneath and we'll see the furnace mounted there. Working on routing the exhaust. Here's where the furnace is here itself. And I want to keep it inside of this frame rail because I'm going to add a blocker there to protect all this from the tire, from debris from the tire. You can see where the exhaust then comes up. Let me turn around this side, routes up and over, and then down. And on the frame here, I'm going to put a nutsert in here so I can mount the exhaust or the muffler right here. And in these tighter spaces, I use the popper version of it with the plus nuts. You have to thread it a couple times on this one. but it still works. Now we got to put PR15 on it though before we put this in and let it dry. So I'll be back in a little bit after that's dry. And here is the exhaust now in. You can see it just comes over top of the leaf spring. Mounted the muffler here. Put a nut zert in so I could mount the muffler there. And then it exhausts out here. I've got a plus nut in here so that way I can use a clamp to mount that. There's a fresh air intake there. This obviously is the filter side. And then it comes up, makes a loop, comes back around, and then enters there. Now I'm going to put a block off plate here. You can see, put a block off plate coming down here. That will then protect all this from road debris. Now I'm working on the heat shield to protect the heater that's underneath the van. It is right behind the rear wheel, so debris, rocks, whatever might throw up on it. Obviously it could be outside, so a little bit of water won't hurt it, but I want to make sure it's protected as well as possible. So I'm building then a aluminum shield to go in front of that. I'm building then a template, paper template. Some of you who follow the channel or know me know that one of the person who taught me how to do most of this is Pat Prince. He just passed away. So it is kind of bittersweet to be working on some of these things. The reality is, as he said, if you can build it out of paper, you can build it out of steel or aluminum. And he's right. So what I do now is I folded this up. This will go underneath then the van. Here's where the exhaust comes through. This will protect then the heater. And now I'm going to transfer it to a piece of aluminum, cut that aluminum out, fold it into shape. So here's my part, my paper part that I had built. You can see the folds. There it goes. Trace it out then. And here it is in aluminum. Use this piece of aluminum in particular. You can see this tracing here and some of the drill marks. This is actually one of the last pieces Pat was working on when he was here in the shop. It's nice to use something that he had started. We're going to keep it in the van, obviously, forever. Here is then the aluminum casing I built to block off the heater. You can see here is the heating unit here. So what this does is, because the wheel's here, it's going to throw up debris this way. This can be protected. You can see here how this is now. There's a couple bolts that I put in here with plus nuts, and then that holds the case in place. It's protected nicely. It's sealed pretty well right up here against the edge here. I don't mind water. I just don't want rock and debris smacking into it real hard. There we go.